Good day to everybody. Thank you for being here with us today. We are going to have a very special webinar about cultural perspectives on leadership. Leadership has many forms and differs from one culture to the next. Today, speakers will look at some of the cultural similarities and differences to help us bridge the gaps and learn from one another. Our speakers include Adenike Osadolor, BPW Nigeria, past International Regional Coordinator for Africa. Diana Barragan, BPW Ecuador, current BPW International Regional Coordinator for Latin America. Pinella Bombaci, BPW Italy, immediate past BPW International Regional Coordinator for Europe. Bessie Hironimus, North America, BPW-USA, immediate past BPW International Executive Secretary, and past Regional Coordinator, North America and Caribbean. And Otoha Hasaki-hun, BPW Japan, immediate past young BPW Regional Coordinator for Asia Pacific. Thank you. And we will start with Diana Barragan, Regional Coordinator for Latin America. Diana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to be here. I'm very grateful to Yasmin and Anne to have invited me to be a panelist in this group. I'm going to share the screen right now. Can everybody see the presentation? Yeah. Thank you. So as Yasmin said, I'm going to speak about cultural perspective on leadership from the Latin American point of view. Well, very briefly, according to the Oxford Dictionary, leadership is the action of leading a group of people or an organization. On the other hand, culture is the ways of life, including arts, beliefs, and institutions of populations that are passed down from generation to generation, and it's considered the way of life for an entire society. These two concepts interrelate. They have a correlation in the sense that culture influences leadership styles. Every aspect of leadership is affected by culture, and the characteristics, the attributes and behaviors desired and believed to be important in a society for a leader. And like Yasmin said, different leaders are in different cultures. What makes a good leader in one culture doesn't work in another culture. Latin America is a very big continent. It is 13% of the world's total and surface area. It has 590 million people of the 7 billion people on the planet, which is 8% of the world's population. Like in other regions, historical events have shaped the governments and leadership practice in Latin America. People share experiences and they produce expectations regarding governance or leadership. These expectations are passed through generations and they become the structure of how governance works and affect cultural values and cultural mental models. So culture matters on how leaders emerge and are selected, developed, or seen. Latin American leaders differ from their equals in other regions in a great number of characteristics. Those who emerged to lead social change and transitional governments relied on autocratic, populist, and paternalistic leadership styles. They are either traditional leaders, el patrón or the chief, or recently they tend to adopt a modern type of leadership, is the modern leader, el líder moderno. So as I was telling you, autocratic, paternalistic, and populist leadership styles are the most common in Latin America. Autocratic styles draw on positional power. I mentioned countries here, but they're not the only ones now that have been marked by this style: Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, Mexico. Paternalist refers to making decisions and promises in a way like a father does, a parental way that engenders care and loyalty. Populist styles, on the other hand, are based on claims that the leader is going to arrange the world for everybody, versus the elites and the power groups who concentrate power for themselves, according to these populists. The most striking feature of cultural development in Latin America has been the very pronounced cultural commitment. The leaders see themselves as active members of society who care about the development of their countries and are deeply involved in national affairs. Another point of importance is patriarchy and matriarchy. Central, North, and South America have long been havens of matriarchal cultures. And these have surprised Europeans, and regarding what level of cultural flexibility, they are shocked. This is the case in some parts of Latin America, since we still have matriarchy, but very few, like in the Cuna culture, where women are still making decisions for the community. And their decision and responsibility have never been questioned. After the colony, Latin American women were driven to change the paradigm and to submit to patriarchal society, where men occupy positions of authority and power. In general, men had rights over women that they did not have over other men, and women did not have over themselves. Women's presence in Latin America is still limited at the highest decision-making levels. There's still a gap between formal actions and the results obtained in most countries. There are regulations, organizations, and public policies to mainstream gender policies, even if their effects is still uncertain. The region needs a very much more ambitious gender agenda, which goes from compliance with formality to women's full and meaningful participation. In this, the public sector should be the benchmark in each country. The main attributes for good leadership in Latin America is inspirational. I think this is common to many good leaders in the world, visionary leadership, and leaders exhibiting team integrating characteristics. If I summarize, I don't want to take too much, as another region, culture influences leadership. Latin American culture has inherited from its history, which has been that of colonialism. Women, instead of inheriting from matriarchy of the pre-colonial cultures, women have submitted to the patriarchy of the colony. A good leader in Latin America, it's the one that tends to engage in charismatic, value-based, and team-oriented leadership. But it won't be contrary to some elements of self-protective leadership. On the other side, in the public sector, we have paternalist, autocratic, populist leaders, and often they are preferred by the people. I just took at the time to look what BPW International might need. In BPW International, what applies is cross-cultural leadership, which is becoming increasingly necessary as the world becomes more global. In this globalized world, BPW leaders should communicate across cultural boundaries, not only speak different languages, but also have a knowledge of the different ways in different cultures. The attitude of the leader is more important than formal structures which can be different. Effective cross-cultural leadership requires an understanding of the two key differences between cultures, cultural values and cultural norms. I've put reference here because this is going to be in the web and I would like to respect that. And I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Diana. Now we are going to listen with the Bessie Hironimus. Thank you, Bessie. We know that for you it's 4 a.m.
Thank you, Jasmine and Anne. Hello, everybody. I give you some thoughts of leadership in the US. My thoughts are, what is leadership? It is strength and the ability to give strength to others so they can stand on their own. It is the ability to guide others into a direction or decision that leaves them feeling empowered and accomplished. You don't need a title to be a leader. You lead by example. They won't remember what you say as much as what you do. Use your leadership skills to help people, to inspire and motivate them to reach their fullest potential. A great example of an American leader is our BPW founder, Dr. Lena Madison Phillips. She was a visionary, a motivator, and an inspiration. She said, be practical in your work, but never lose the dream of our great vision of the future. In 1919, she called for the establishment of the National Organization of BPW to bring about solidarity among women throughout the nation and eventually throughout the world. In 1930, she saw her dream come true with the birth of the International Federation of BPW. Other outstanding US women have said, Anne, can I have some the sayings from the, do you mind? Okay. Nancy Reagan, First Lady of the US, said that a woman is like a tea bag. As soon as you put them in hot water is when you see how strong she is. The next one. Maya Angelou is an author and very inspirational. She says, if you get, give. If you learn, teach. The next one is Dolly Parton. She's a singer. And she says, if your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Another First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt, said, do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you will be criticized anyway. And isn't that true? Thank you, Anne. In the US, the year 2018 was declared the Year of the Woman. It brought attention to the accomplishment made by women and their contribution to the country. It also attracted a record number of women to run for different public offices. A large number of political action committees were created, focused on supporting female candidates. For example, the Center for American Women and Politics is a primary source of data and analysis on women's political representation, with an extensive collection and analysis on women candidates and office holders. In the political sector, women nominees for gubernatorial and state legislative positions set new records this year, and a record number of women registered to vote. At the national level, we see an increasing number of women running for congressional office and seeking appointment to a public office or committee. The most common elective office for women beginning in the political career is to run for school boards, city council, or any other local public office, or for the board of civil societies. Other leadership positions are to seek appointment to local, state, or national boards, or to serve on boards of large businesses or corporations. At the moment, women's presence in the political sphere includes the national vice president, as well as the Speaker of the House, several state governors, and other important and influential posts. The major issues concerning women are women's rights and reproductive freedom, the economy, and immigration reform. Also, there is a belief that women wait to run until their children are a bit older and have less family responsibilities. It's not always true, but that is the general belief. Regarding leadership in the business world, the majority of small businesses in the US are owned and managed by women. With the COVID pandemic, most businesses were closed for a while, which caused a loss of jobs and a loss of businesses, especially in the service field and the small businesses. Business owners, mainly women, had to be resourceful and use their leadership skills to survive in a difficult economy. Fortunately, women are competitive and resourceful to succeed. There are many resources to assist businesswomen, such as workshops, courses, scholarships, and grants, government and civil societies offering training and help businesswomen reach their full potential. Of course, one of the last is the Business and Professional Women, BPW. Remember, leadership is the key to success. Leadership is an action, not a position. A good leader does not command excellence. She builds excellence. To be an effective leader, your followers must have trust in you, and you must have honesty, be competent, inspiring, courageous, and most of all, be prepared and well-informed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bessie. And now is the time to listen. Pinella, I cannot see you. Hi, Pinella.
I'm fine. Aspetta, arrivo. Thank you, my dear, for this opportunity. I am very, very happy today to embrace you all, huh? Because you are my friends, first of all. So I have to share my video, and I will share with you. I am here. As you know, I was, aspetta, questa la dobbiamo levare. Ecco. I was a national president of BPW Italy in the biennium 27-29, and after European Coordination Committee Secretary for 6 years, and then BPW Europe Regional Coordinator for 3 years, 2017-2020. As you can imagine, I visited more than 100. I visited more than 100 clubs in different regions of Italy, but mainly many countries in Europe, and not only in Europe. For this reason, it is true, I had the opportunity to observe the different leadership style in each country, the fantasy of the Italian members, their capacity to involve other women in their territories, the fantasy of their actions in organizing events following the themes indicated by the international and the national president, their ability to involve local institutions, but also other associations for a common action in favor of women. I had also two opportunities to observe and admire the perfect organization capacity of the Switzerland members. Think that at the European Conference 2016 in Zurich, more than 900 members were from all over Europe, and word. And everything, I repeat, was perfect, like a Swiss watch, like as we say in Italy. I had the privilege to meet in their countries so many members from the eastern part of Europe. Their sweetness, their strong desire to be part of our women association and find networking opportunities. In Russia, in Poland, in Georgia, in Ukraine with the beloved members of BPW, Chernihiv, in Moldova. I noted in these countries a silent but desperate need of attention, of care, but also generosity and a great sense of hospitality. I have known the radiance of the members who lives in the islands, always ready to cooperate for a common success. We know well that there is no a single leadership style that works for all people. Every leader has a personality and a background that influence her leadership style. But everywhere in BPW, at least in Europe, with some rare exceptions, I noted and had proof of a visionary leadership with a clear and long-term vision, able to inspire and motivate other members. And this is a great and valuable behavior, because a democratic leader welcomes everyone's opinions and encourages cooperation, distributing decision-making and responsibility to everyone. Organization members feel inspired and understand their role. Temporary problems don't discourage the leader, because she always has the final goal in mind. To guide these different people in Europe, I used my idea of leadership. A leadership enclosed in a sentence that I have always kept in my heart and that has always guided my actions. It is not a sentence of mine, it is a sentence of a famous Italian entrepreneur. If your spirit is full of positive feelings, your actions will be full of fascination. With this idea of leadership, with passion, competence, availability, respect, I was able to unite so many countries and to strengthen BPW Europe, transforming also the cool best regards into big hugs. When your spirit is full of positive feelings, your action will be full of fascination. This is my idea of leadership in BPW. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What a great experience you just shared with us. And now is the time to listen. Otoha, are you there, Otoha? Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you, Otoha. We know that you are a little bit sick.
Yes, yeah, thank you. Yes,
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So hi, everyone. I'm Otoha from BPW Japan. I'm also a member of BPW UK as I just moved. So apologies first. I have cold at the moment, and so if I start coughing, it's not gonna stop. So I will be very, very quick with what I'm going to say. So general leadership. You know, I have the other panelists who have great experience, and they are doing a lot of great explanation to you all. So I'm just going to focus on the Asian perspective, but especially in Japan. So generally in Asia, the culture of respecting the elder is still a huge part in our society compared to the Western society. And modern days, Japan is a lot more relaxed in comparison to all other Asian countries. So I was quite surprised whenever I was hearing from some of my friends about the etiquettes and manners in other Asian countries, which are still practiced in today's society. But compared to most Western societies, the younger ones definitely lack the opportunities to speak up, which of course leads to the lack of opportunities to take any leadership roles, is the general consensus that we have. So why are the elders respected more and not the younger ones? It is purely based on the simple fact that the younger ones, the younger you are, the less life or career experiences you have, which is the reason why the elders are always respected and heard. Therefore, it's sometimes some elders might say it's not worth listening to you, is what they might say to the younger people. And so is there any difference in your gender if you're being heard or not? Of course we do. So patriarchy has still been a big issue in Japan. Although it's changing in the big cities like Tokyo, women are still belonging to her family, her husband's family, unless she's the biggest bread earner in the household, or she has decided to cut all ties with her family in some extreme cases. So in many parts of Japan, younger women still suffer from not being able to get the education that she actually wanted. So people might have problem with going to university to study anything to do with science, because any woman with science degree in some rural areas, it's not easy for them to find a suitable husband, because you don't want your wife to be too smart. So the younger woman will be told by their family that you shouldn't go to university. If you want to go to university, then you should just study literature, because you will not be seen as too smart. And then you will have a lot more suitors for your marriage in the future. As ridiculous as it sounds, it's still the case. And it's still the case for people my generation in their 30s, and also for the people who are in their high school age at the moment. So now, as I mentioned earlier, the younger people are less heard, respected due to lack of experiences. Women always lacking experience or even education compared to men. So now you know what happens in the leadership situation. If you are a woman, and if you are not the oldest one in the room, you will never be heard, not recognized, and certainly you will never be a leader. I'm not sure if everybody saw this news back in 2020, but for our Tokyo Olympics organization committee, we had the head of the committee saying some disrespectful phrases towards fellow women who were also on the committee with him. This has caused a lot of issues in Japan. He was also a former prime minister of the country, saying something like this, which was an embarrassment and then a shock to us as a nation. But to have this taken up as an issue and also as a headline in all medias in Japan was a big surprise, but also a very promising and positive perspective for us, because our society is definitely changing. And although it's a very small pace and not small steps, I think Japan might change a little bit, and then hopefully this is going to change a lot. But generally speaking, yes, we still have a lot of issues in leadership, equal opportunities, not just for men and women to have equal opportunities, but we also have a lot of issues depending on what age you are as well. So that was my very, very quick insight to how the leadership situation is in Japan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Otoha. Too much to do there and in some other countries in your region. Now is the time to listen Adenike Osadolor past regional coordinator of Africa for 2 terms. Adenike, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share from an African lens on cultural aspects of leadership, cultural perspectives on leadership. I must start by saying that there is not one single, excuse me, please, there is not one single African perspective. Africa is diverse in terms of culture, in terms of tradition. And within this diversity, there are different levels of leadership, from the family unit to the clan and to the community. Leadership is also operated at every stage in life, within age groups, elders, warrior groups, and so on, with each respecting the others and acknowledging that each needs the others to survive. Even though there is a diversity of African cultures, there are commonalities, especially in such areas as value systems, beliefs, practices, which largely reflect what we can call the African worldview. Maybe I should mention before I go on that in Nigeria alone, in my country, there are over 250 ethnic nationalities with different languages. So you can, just to give you an idea of the kind of diversity, there is in Africa. That is only Nigeria, and we have 54 countries in Africa with that also, spread also in their diversity. But I spoke about commonalities. It is from these commonalities that the Afrocentric perspective, perspectives are derived. And that is what I'm going to speak to. I'm going to speak from 2 Afrocentric principles that I'm familiar with. One is the concept of Omoluabi in the Yoruba worldview. I am very familiar with that because I am Yoruba. And then, of course, I will also speak about the concept of Ubuntu, which originates from the Zulu in South Africa. The Omoluabi concept. That word, Omoluabi, derives from 4 words. Omo, which means child. You can see from that diagrammatic expression. T, which means that or which. And Oluiwa, which means character. And there is B, which means bears or give birth to. So looking at the combination of those 4 words, Omoluabi now becomes the child that character, note the capital C in character, gives birth to. Character here means the author of character, if there's anything like that. That is the perfect essence of character. So a child so begotten can only be the reflection of that perfect character. This is much like Plato's world of form and appearance. And this character manifests in different ways: courage, hard work, humility, respect, among other values. And then, so the Omoluabi principle now of leadership in Yoruba culture. A leader must be seen to embody all the virtues of Omoluabi. That is, a person of honor who believes in hard work, respects the rights of others, and gives to the community in deeds and in action. The concept of Omoluabi is supposed to guide leaders to be empathetic and to allow citizens get jointly involved in the leadership process. So the leadership that imbibes this Omoluabi principle, the Omoluabi principle and values, invites respectability and acceptability. The second principle I want to touch on is the Ubuntu principle. Ubuntu is well recognized in African philosophy as emphasizing that an individual's success comes through others. That is to say, I am because of who we are. Quoting a lawyer and a leadership consultant, Soye Shubandi, He describes Ubuntu as emphasizing collective action. There is no place for me, myself, and I. Together, we win and make a difference. So taking these two principles together, what are the gains for leadership? A common thread running through the two concepts of Omoluabi and Ubuntu is the principles they both espouse. One, the community is one of the critical building blocks of society. We often hear it said that it takes a whole village to raise a child. Two, joint ownership of the commonwealth of a nation by both the ones who govern and the governed. And three, full and equitable participation of the citizens in governance. These principles were what galvanized men and women in Africa to rise against colonialism. People like Kwame Nkrumah, practice Lumumba of Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo. People like Awolowo in Nigeria and Azikiwe in Nigeria too, and several others. And even in recent times against apartheid, when we talk about apartheid, we remember Mandela, and so many others. It also gives rise to a new crop of political, business, and thought leaders across Africa. I would say, for instance, that these principles plays out very well in Rwanda, for instance. In order to build itself up after the devastating genocide of the Tutsis in 1994, Rwanda, under the leadership of Paul Kagame, is working on changing the narrative. And its success lies with everyone getting involved, from the young entrepreneurs, the young professionals, to the high number of women in the legislature, up to the president himself. And so, talking about this, I just want to end with my last. Before I end, I want to say that this, I'm not trying to paint a very beautiful or perfect picture of Africa. I'm talking from the cultural point of view. I want to remind us that a lot of these values based in our culture were eroded by colonialism. And so that made Africa a bit conflicted. So that is why we have so many problems about leadership for now. But you can see from people that I have mentioned in this discussion that the tide is turning for good, slowly, but it will get there. Africa, the last word I want to say is that Africa has borrowed so much from the rest of the world. Some have worked, many more have not. So it is about time that we also begin to lend what works for us to the rest of the world, even in BPW International, as women, mentoring others, building others, and making others, be part of a society that works for everybody. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all our speakers. It was a great presentation. Anne, do you want to?
I'm here, Yasmin. So I also want to thank all of our speakers and to invite now people from our lovely audience to jump in. So before we do open it up to everyone, I wonder, Yasmin, do you have any comment or question that you'd like to make?
Thank you. Well, yes, I think it's too much to say about in BPW, mainly in BPW. Each region have a different cultures. For example, North America is Canada, USA, and the Caribbean. And these three BPW members are different. Latin America is the same, and as Pinella said, in Europe, and also differences in languages, which makes sometimes difficult to communicate. In Africa, the same. They have also Egypt, which is an Arab country, and but it's Africa country and totally different from each other. So it's not easy to be a leader in BPW International. You try to please sometimes everybody, but this is something that it's not possible all the time. So yes, we are a huge mosaic of cultures and different styles of leadership that we have to learn if we want to have a leadership position in BPW International, and respect each other. And also the members has to learn how to be democratic, how to follow the rules of BPW International, because the rules are the rules for everybody. No matter if your culture is different, but this is the main issue in importance in BPW. Our governance documents let everybody to have the same rights. So it's also a learning organization to everybody. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Yasmin. Okay, we're going to start with Carmen.
Hi, everybody. I just have a quick question to all of the panelists, and anyone that likes to answer it is fine by me. I just want to ask the question, what do we do when the leader is not a good leader, and when it's doing a huge amount of damage to your organization or company that you work for, that it affects so much that if it's an organization, you're actually losing members? So does anybody actually have an idea of what you do in a situation like that? Or would anybody like to comment on it?
Thank you, Carmen. All of our speakers don't need to comment, but if anybody would like to comment on that, when we have a destructive leader. Bessie, I see your hand, I think. Bessie, if you'll just unmute.
Well, BPW is not, it's a participatory organization. It is not dictatorial. Unfortunately, some people believe that the position gives them the right to be dictatorial. And as I said, you don't need a title. You are there to serve people. You have been elected or appointed to do the job that you are going to be performing. And there is not just one person managing the whole organization. There is a structure there. And if you see that your leader is not performing the way that it should be, there is an executive committee, a board, the board of directors, there is the regional members. I mean, the membership should stand up and say something because the members have the voice.
Okay.
It is a membership-driven organization.
Okay.
And not easy, not always easy.
No, not easy to do.
So Carmen, I'll add something to that, because just in the last 2 weeks, we replaced the president in Hong Kong. And she's a lovely woman with a lot of leadership capability, but we had a year of dysfunction. And so what we had to do was our past presidents form an advisory council, and we took the lead and then encouraged the members, and with her agreement, we encouraged the members. She stepped down, and then we held a special election to replace her midterm. So if the person doesn't agree to step down, that of course is more problematic. But if they do, then there's an easy way to, whether special election or similar, to replace them.
Okay, thank you.
Who else would like to speak? Diana. Diana, go ahead.
Yes, that model that you just described is very good. But in places like, I just listened to Otoha, and what she talked about is similar to what obtains in Africa. It's always difficult for people to come up against their elders. And so from a cultural background, this becomes very difficult to unseat a bad leader. It takes time. But I'm sure, but I also learned from what you said. Yeah, the past presidents. forming an advisory council now came together. Even if that person will not listen to any other person, at least she will listen to her predecessors. And so that will make a difference. But I'm just saying that for some cultures, that is a very difficult thing to do. And then also, we also have to understand that even within Africa, I said earlier that there's diversity. Some countries are in Africa by way of geographical location. They are not really culturally Africans. So there's also a conflict from where such people come from and the kind of values that I have discussed in on this panel. So all these things work together to make it difficult for everybody to conform to the standard expected of, for example, BPW International.
Okay. Thanks very much, Adenike. And Diana, you wanted to make a comment as well.
I'd like to say that that question led me to think that it's maybe wider. Because if you take the problem to a country level, you know, or private organization or non-profit organization, the problem is different. In a private organization, you might have ways to easily put the CEO out of the organization. In the country, you have a culture influencing very hardly in this fact. So if people believe that they have elected a person and that person has the majority in Congress, well, they won't be able to take it down. In NGOs, it's more difficult to do so because whether politics affect or rules affect, or depending on what type of organizations there is, we have different ways of taking the leader down, you know, of asking her or him or whatever to leave office. But it's not the same, you know, it's not leadership, is different if you see different types of organization. That's what I wanted to say, Armin. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Diana. Otoha, I'll turn to you for a moment.
Okay. Thank you, Anne. So I just wanted to get back to Joe Kinsey's question in the comment. So I'm just going to read out the question first. So do you think this is just in Japan culturally or in other countries? Without our young BPW members inputting actively, we will not grow. In BPW UK, we have a young BPW member on our FEC. So coming back to that, so first question, I think the issue we have in Japan about, you know, women generally lacking in work or life experiences and then also education, therefore not seen as a suitable leader in many situations. I think that may also be the case in some other countries if women are also having difficulty getting career experiences and also education as much as men do in general. I can't speak on behalf of all the Asian countries, but if anyone's having same situation, I'm sure that is also the case. And then regarding to the young BPW being on the board, in Japan, we do have young BPW on board all the time. Which is the reason why, so I joined BPW Japan in 2014, and then I was elected as the chair of Young BPW, so Young BPW representative for Japan from 2015. And since then, because of the NGO rules in Japan, I couldn't stay as a Young BPW chair the whole time, but they have been keeping me on board for lots of other roles. So right now, I'm the chair of the International Committee for BPW Japan. And then we just making sure I'm no longer in my 20s, but at least I am still the youngest one on the board. And then we just making sure that I'm also going to be talking with people in their 20s and then keep getting refreshed and updated. And then I think that's I hope that's the situation in many of the BPW countries as well. If not, then that's definitely something we should keep encouraging to make sure young BPW member is definitely on the board member.
Thank you, Otoha. And I'll just add a note to that because of my 10 plus years in neighboring Korea, that one word you're not using, although you're talking about it, is hierarchy. which comes from Confucian ideals in the past. And Northeast Asia in particular is one of the most hierarchical areas of the world. So it's not only the gender issue, but you were mentioning youth. And I think Joe's question is also about not necessarily giving enough voice or enough leadership opportunities to younger people because we assume they don't have enough experience. But there's that whole other layer of hierarchy in Northeast Asia that is another very powerful influence that really, I think Western cultures may have had some of that traditionally, not speaking before you're spoken to if you're younger and that sort of thing, or given permission and such, but it's still very strong in that part of the world. So I think that's a little bit more than other cultures would be.
Yeah, so just the BPW Japan was my first ever experience outside of my family household. Yeah. I can just speak at the same level as everybody else who was in the room.
That makes BPW very different from Japanese culture.
Yes, yeah, no, so we have
because that would not be done in a Japanese corporation, I'm quite sure.
Yeah, so I'm always told to just be careful when I'm outside.
Great, thank you. Okay, Elena.
Yes, hello, good morning to everyone. So I have a question again for all the panelists, and is related to, of course, the leadership issue and the soft skills, because leadership is made, of course, of hard skills, but also a lot related to soft skills. So the question is, how do you measure them? I mean, it's quite easy to measure hard skills, but it's more difficult to score the soft skills. So I would like to know, how do you do it? And if you have a procedure to do this, because we talk a lot about being inspiring, being flexible, being humble, etc., but how do you score this type of capabilities that are really important?
Soft skills. Diana, would you like to begin with that? I see your hand.
Very briefly, I think the first way of measuring, if we don't have a test like in psychology, you have the test to measure things, but here it's only by looking at the results, the followers of a leader. Then you can realize how the leader is envisioned, the leader is seen, and is followed and is respected. This is what I think can be, how I think it can be measured. Elena, I don't know if I answered that.
Yes, absolutely, you answered that, but yes, and it's really important, I believe, and it's the way of inspiring people. So if you have a lot of followers and a lot of people who respects you, means that you have done great. So you have those capabilities. I believe that we should do something more. We have to find something more, because sometimes it's really difficult to understand whether that person is a good leader or not. And since we don't have like KPI for technical skills or for very clear goals that can be seen or can be measured, it's really tough. But absolutely, Diana, I agree with you, this can be a solution.
On the other hand, followers might just indicate charisma. It's very easy to have a lights and whistles and bells sort of show and nothing underneath it. So can go both ways in terms of how many people follow you. Thank you, Elena. We are at the end of our session, actually, so I do want to bring it to a close. So I will give a great big thanks to each of our speakers. Again, we have Otoha from Japan and now from UK. You're in for a few culture shocks, but I know you went to school there, so your schooling years will help. Pinella, of course, from Europe and specifically Italy. Bessie from North America. Diana from Latin America, specifically Ecuador, and Adenike from the African region, specifically Nigeria. A great big thanks to all of you one more time. And your voices have been heard and appreciated, and the mosaic of all of these regions is something that we can really cherish and learn from for the rest of our lives and beyond, if you will. Yasmin, thank you as always to my co-facilitator for this series. We will this, of course, concludes the 2022 series. We will be continuing in January, and we will have a new format for next year, so stay tuned. And we thank all of the rest of our audience today, all of our participants for being here. We really appreciate it. So thank you to all of us, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.